Have you ever noticed how you can be perfectly safe, sitting in a quiet room, yet your heart is racing as if you're running from a threat that isn't there? It's a strange, heavy feeling, like you're carrying an invisible backpack full of stones you never chose to pick up. We often think of trauma as a single, massive event, but more often, it is the quiet accumulation of moments where we had to swallow our feelings just to keep moving. It's the tense shoulders after a long day of pretending everything is fine, the shallow breath when you walk into a crowded room, or the way your jaw tightens when a certain name is mentioned in conversation. This weight doesn't always announce itself with a loud noise. Instead, it lives in the background of your life, like a hum you've become so used to that you forget what silence sounds like. You might feel it as a sudden wave of exhaustion that hits you in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon, even though you slept through the night. Or perhaps it's that inexplicable on edge feeling where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, constantly scanning the horizon for a problem to solve because your body has forgotten how to simply be. We carry the moments where we weren't allowed to cry, the times we had to be the strong one, and the instances where our boundaries were crossed so quietly we didn't even realize it was happening until years later. We carry the echoes of childhood rooms that felt too small or too loud. Every time we suppressed a natural impulse to protect ourselves, our body took a mental note. It tucked that energy away in the muscles of the neck, the lining of the stomach, and the grip of the hands. It's a heavy realization to acknowledge that you have been surviving for a very long time. You might look at your life and see success, see a home, see a person who has it all together. But underneath that veneer, there is a nervous system that is still bracing for impact. It's like living in a house where the alarm system is permanently stuck in the on position. Eventually, the siren becomes a part of the architecture. You stop trying to turn it off and just learn to talk over the noise. But carrying this weight is deeply lonely. It creates a barrier between you and the people you love, because you are so focused on holding up the ceiling that you can't fully reach out your arms to embrace anyone. You might feel numb or checked out, not because you don't care, but because your system is using every ounce of its available energy just to keep those stones in the backpack from spilling out. Carl Jung once spoke about how we meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 different disguises on the path of life. Often, those disguises are the very symptoms of the weight we carry. The irritability, the brain fog, the chronic tension. These aren't flaws in your character. They are the body's way of saying, I am holding too much. Please look at me. Please help me let this go. To begin this journey, you have to first admit that the backpack is there. You have to stop telling yourself that it's just stress, or that everyone feels this way. Your experience is unique, and your burden is real. There is a profound grief in realizing how much energy you've spent just trying to stay upright. But in that grief, there is also the beginning of a massive shift. The moment you stop pretending the weight isn't there is the moment you can finally begin to unbuckle the straps. You are not weak for feeling tired. You are incredibly resilient for having carried it this far. Now, for the first time, we are going to look at those stones, not with judgment, but with a gentle, steady compassion, and ask what it would feel like to finally, truly set them down. We try to talk ourselves out of our stress. We tell ourselves to just relax or get over it. But our physiology doesn't take orders from our logic. Your nervous system is like a high-speed record of every time you felt overwhelmed, misunderstood, or unheard. It is a living library of every moment you had to hold your breath to stay safe or stay quiet. Even if your mind has forgotten the details of a difficult year or a strained relationship, your cells have a long and faithful memory. They remember the bracing, the hiding, and the internal collapsing long after the external circumstances have changed. As Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." In the context of our bodies, this means our physical state reflects our history more accurately than our thoughts ever could. We can tell ourselves we are fine. We can recite affirmations in the mirror, and we can plan for a bright future. But if the body is still stuck in a moment from 5 years ago, that fine will always feel like a fragile mask. If your body has learned that the world is a place where you must always be on guard, it will keep that guard up until you give it a physical reason to let it down. It is not trying to sabotage your happiness. It is trying to ensure your survival with the only tools it was ever given. Think of it like a shadow that follows you into every room. You might be at a celebratory dinner or a peaceful walk, but if a specific tone of voice or a sudden movement triggers that internal record, your body reacts instantly. Your heart rate climbs, your skin cools, and your focus narrows. In that moment, you aren't in the present. You are back in the score that your body is still playing. It's an exhausting way to live, to be physically present in a beautiful moment while your internal chemistry is reacting to a ghost from the past. This stored record often shows up in the ways we least expect. It's the persistent knot between your shoulder blades that no massage seems to reach. It's the way your stomach twists into a ball before a simple meeting. It's the unexplained fatigue that makes your limbs feel like lead. These aren't just random physical glitches. They are messages. They are the body's way of shouting when the mind has tried to stay silent. For years, you might have treated these symptoms as inconveniences to be managed or suppressed with caffeine and distractions, but they are actually invitations to look closer at what has been left unprocessed. We often feel a sense of betrayal when our body reacts this way. We feel frustrated that we can't just be normal or let it go. But the body is actually being incredibly loyal to you. It is holding on to that energy because it never felt it was safe enough to release it. It's been waiting for a signal, a genuine physical experience of safety, to finally close the file on those old memories. It is waiting for you to stop treating it like a machine that needs fixing and start treating it like a friend who has been through a long, hard war and is finally home. Healing begins when we stop arguing with our sensations. Instead of asking, "Why am I feeling this way again?" we can start saying, "I see that you are trying to protect me." This shift changes everything. It moves us from a state of conflict with our own skin to a state of collaboration. We begin to understand that the score doesn't have to be a life sentence. It's just a recording. And recordings can be overwritten. When we start to listen to the language of our muscles and our breath, we give the body permission to stop being a vault for the past and start being a home for the present. We acknowledge that while the body kept the score, it is also the body that holds the key to the final, peaceful release. To discharge what's been stored, we have to stop speaking in thought and start speaking in sensation. We spend so much of our lives living from the neck up, trying to analyze our way out of pain or intellectualize our way into peace. But the nervous system doesn't speak English or any other spoken tongue. It speaks in the language of temperature, pressure, rhythm, and tension. It speaks in the butterfly flutters of your stomach, the sudden coldness in your fingertips, and the heavy, pulsing heat in your chest when you're overwhelmed. Think about a time you were incredibly frustrated. Maybe you were stuck in traffic, dealing with a difficult email, or feeling ignored by someone you love. In that moment, your mind was likely racing with words, but your body was doing something much more primal. You might have felt a heat rising in your neck, a tightness in your jaw, or a sudden urge to pace the room. That is your nervous system preparing for a fight that never happens. When we don't finish that physical response, when we sit perfectly still in our office chair while our internal chemistry is screaming to run, the energy stays stuck. It's like a car engine revving in neutral. The heat builds and builds, but there is nowhere for the movement to go. Healing isn't just about understanding why we feel this way. It's about giving that physical heat a place to go. It's about acknowledging that anxiety is often just energy with nowhere to go. When we feel that hum of restlessness, our instinct is usually to distract ourselves, to pick up a phone, to work harder, or to eat something to numb the sensation. But when we do that, we are essentially hanging up the phone while our body is trying to tell us something vital. We are ignoring the only language the nervous system has. Imagine for a second what it would be like to actually listen to that language without trying to translate it into a problem. What if that tightness in your chest isn't a sign of a heart attack or a failure, but just a physical sensation of tightness? When we name the sensation, we take the power away from the fear. We move from "I am dying" to "there is a pulsing in my chest." This is the beginning of the conversation. By noticing the rhythm of your pulse or the way your weight shifts in your chair, you are finally speaking to your body in a way it can understand. You are saying, "I hear you. I feel this." Carl Jung noted that the body is a faithful companion. This companion is constantly sending us signals about our environment and our safety. When we feel drained, It's often because our nervous system has been shouting in a language we've been ignoring for years. It's exhausted from trying to get our attention. To bridge this gap, we have to learn to be quiet enough to hear the subtle shifts. We have to learn that a deep, spontaneous yawn isn't just about being tired. It's the body trying to reset. A sudden shiver isn't just about the cold. It's a release of built-up static. When we start to respect these physical words, we stop being victims of our own reactions. We start to see that our nervous system isn't broken or oversensitive. It is simply expressive. It is trying to tell us its story. By giving ourselves permission to feel the heat, the cold, the tightness, and the release, we are finally learning the grammar of our own survival. We are moving toward a place where we can respond to life's stresses with a fluid, natural movement instead of a rigid, stored-up freeze. This is how we begin to speak ourselves back into wholeness, not through the stories we tell, but through the sensations we finally allow ourselves to feel. Before we can let anything go, we have to feel rooted. For so many of us, the world has felt like a place where the ground is constantly shifting, where the rules change without warning, and where we have to keep our bags packed just in case. When you live in that state for too long, your body forgets that it is allowed to take up space. You start to live on the surface of yourself, breathing shallowly, ready to bolt at any moment. To discharge the old energy, we must first build a container, a mental and physical space where it is finally safe enough to be vulnerable. Imagine you are standing on a solid wooden floor. Don't just think about it. Actually feel the weight of your heels, the balls of your feet, and the way the ground isn't moving. It's a simple realization, but for a nervous system stuck in survival mode, it is a revelation. You are here. You are supported by the chair or the floor. The earth is doing the work of holding you up, so you don't have to hold yourself together for just a few minutes. This is the first wall of your container, the physical proof that you are currently held. Often, when we feel overwhelmed, our internal world becomes a chaotic storm. We lose sight of where we end, and the stress begins. To create a container, we have to bring our attention back to the edges of our reality. Take a moment to look around the room and name 3 objects that are a specific color, like blue or green. Notice the texture of the fabric on your sleeves or the cool air on your skin. This isn't just a distraction. It's a way of telling your brain that you are in the present moment, not back in the memory of what hurt you. You are defining the now. Creating a safe container also means setting a boundary with your own pain. It's saying, I am going to look at this for 10 minutes, and then I am going to step back. We often avoid healing because we're afraid that if we open the door to our stored trauma, we will be swept away by a tidal wave. But a container gives that energy a shape. It says that your feelings are big, but they are not bigger than you. You are the vessel, not the storm. When you provide this structure, your nervous system feels less like it's drowning and more like it's finally being allowed to reign. Carl Jung once suggested that we should be silent and listen to what the soul is trying to say. But we can only be truly silent when we feel protected. If you were in a forest at night, you wouldn't sit and meditate. You'd be watching for shadows. Many of us are trying to heal while our bodies still think they're in that dark forest. Building this container is like lighting a small, steady fire and putting up a tent. It's about creating a perimeter of safety. This container is also made of kindness. It's the soft way you talk to yourself when your hands start to shake or when you feel the urge to cry. It's the permission to be unproductive while you process. When you treat yourself with this level of gentle care, you are building a container that is strong enough to hold even your heaviest memories. You are teaching your body that it no longer has to be its own fortress. You are creating a sanctuary where the stones you've been carrying can finally be laid out on the ground, inspected without fear, and eventually left behind. You are reclaiming your right to feel secure in your own skin, building a home within yourself that no external change can ever truly shake. One of the fastest ways to signal safety to your brain is through the breath. But not just any breath. It is the breath that we usually save for the moment we finally walk through our own front door after a long, exhausting journey. We often forget that our lungs are one of the only parts of our nervous system that we can control both consciously and unconsciously. This means the breath is a bridge, a way for us to reach into the basement of our survival brain and flip the switch from danger to peace. Think about how you breathe when you are stressed. It's usually short, shallow, and held high in the chest. You are literally holding your breath, waiting for the threat to pass. This keeps your body in a state of high alert, as if you're constantly prepared to scream or run. But then, think about the sound a person makes when they finally sit down after a day of heavy lifting. It's a deep, involuntary sigh. This isn't just about oxygen. It's an ancient, biological signal that the work is done. To use this intentionally, try taking a deep, full inhale through your nose, filling your lungs until they feel stretched, and then follow it with a second, shorter sip of air at the very top to fully expand the tiny air sacs in your chest. Then let it all go with a very slow, audible exhale through your mouth, like you're blowing through a straw. This is the physiological sigh. It is the body's natural reset button. When you do this, you are manually overriding the alert signal in your brain. You are physically forcing the carbon dioxide to balance and telling your internal rhythm that the crisis has passed. There is something deeply emotional about a sigh. It is the sound of surrender. Not the surrender of giving up, but the surrender of letting go of a burden you were never meant to carry alone. When you sigh, you are admitting that you are tired, and in that admission, there is a profound relief. As Carl Jung once noted, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. By consciously choosing to sigh, You are taking a physical habit that usually happens only when we are defeated and turning it into a tool of reclaimed power. You are making the unconscious need for relief a conscious act of self-care. Imagine the tension that has been living in your chest as a tightly wound spring. Every time you exhale with that long, slow whoosh of air, you are allowing that spring to uncoil just a little bit more. You might feel a slight tingling in your fingers or a sudden softness in your belly. These are the sounds of your nervous system powering down. It is the sound of your body realized it no longer has to hold its breath. We spend so much of our lives trying to keep it all in, keeping our composure, keeping our secrets, keeping our pain hidden. The sigh is the first crack in that armor. It is a way of saying to yourself, it's okay to let the air out now. You don't have to be so tight anymore. It is a simple, free, and immediate way to come back to yourself. You don't need a special room or a perfect life to do it. You only need the air in your lungs and the willingness to let it leave you. In those few seconds of the exhale, you are creating a tiny window of peace in the middle of whatever storm you are facing. You are proving to your body, breath by breath, that you are finally safe enough to exhale. Think about how you feel after a sudden scare. Maybe you almost dropped something fragile, or a loud noise caught you off guard. Your hands might shake afterward, or you might feel a strange, buzzing vibration in your legs. For a long time, we've been taught to see this shaking as a sign of weakness or a loss of control. We try to steady our hands. We clench our muscles to stop the trembling. And we tell ourselves to get a grip. But that shaking isn't a flaw. It is actually your body's brilliant, ancient way of discharging the adrenaline it just produced. It is the physical manifestation of your nervous system trying to shake off the static of a stressful event so it doesn't settle into your bones. We can use this intentionally. If you feel that familiar hum of anxiety in your limbs, or that heavy, restless feeling that makes you want to crawl out of your skin, try gently shaking your hands or bouncing your heels against the floor. It feels a bit silly at first, especially in a world that values being composed and still at all costs. But being still while your internal world is vibrating with stress is like trying to hold a lid on a boiling pot. Eventually, the pressure becomes too much. By allowing yourself to shake, to literally jiggle your arms, rotate your shoulders, and let your jaw go loose, you are breaking the freeze response that keeps trauma trapped in the body. Carl Jung once suggested that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This includes accepting the parts of us that feel messy, jittery, or unrefined. When we allow ourselves to move in this erratic, rhythmic way, we are accepting the body's need to vent. We are acknowledging that we aren't just thinking machines. We are physical beings that collect energy. If you've spent years holding it together, your muscles have become a storage facility for every unexpressed frustration and every suppressed fear. Shaking is like opening the windows of a dusty room and letting the wind blow through. It lets the energy move through you instead of letting it harden into chronic tension or stuckness. Imagine that the stress you've been carrying is like fine dust that has settled over everything inside you, making the gears of your joy and your creativity grind to a halt. When you shake, you are clearing that dust. You are telling your nervous system, we don't need to hold on to this anymore. The event is over. We are safe to move again. You might find that after a minute of this shaking off, your heart rate begins to level out and your mind feels a little clearer. The static that was making it hard to hear your own thoughts has been quieted. This practice is a powerful way to reclaim your autonomy. When we are overwhelmed, we often feel paralyzed, as if we have no say in how we feel. But the act of movement is a declaration of freedom. It is a way of saying that even if you can't control the world around you, you can control how much of that world you allow to stay inside your body. You are not a stationary target for life's difficulties. You are a fluid, living system designed to process and release. As you let your body bounce and sway, imagine the stones in that invisible backpack being shaken loose. Imagine the tightness in your chest breaking apart into small pieces that can finally be breathed away. This isn't about exercise or looking a certain way. It's about the raw, honest release of what no longer serves you. It is a gift you give to your nervous system, a chance to return to a state of flow. By the time you come to a stop, you might feel a newfound heaviness in your feet and a lightness in your head, a sign that the energy has shifted from a chaotic buzz back into a steady, grounded rhythm. You have shaken off the past, and for this moment, you are clear. We are often our own harshest observers, standing over our own lives with a clipboard and a red pen, ready to circle every perceived failure. When we feel overwhelmed, or when our bodies react to stored stress, we tend to judge ourselves for overreacting, or for not being further along in our healing. This internal voice is loud, sharp, and impatient. It tells us that our anxiety is a flaw, our exhaustion is laziness, and our sensitivity is a liability. But what if that internal critic is actually just a very young, very scared part of you that learned to be harsh as a way to keep you safe? Carl Jung noted that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This is especially true when our bodies feel broken or too sensitive. We spend so much energy trying to suppress the parts of ourselves we find inconvenient. We want to be the version of ourselves that is always productive, always calm, and always on. When our nervous system rebels, when we feel that sudden surge of panic or that heavy blanket of numbness, the critic steps in to shame us back into place. But shame is a restrictive energy. It tightens the very muscles we are trying to relax. It adds a layer of meta-address on top of the original trauma, making the weight even harder to carry. Instead of fighting the tension, try a radical shift. Try softening toward it. if you feel a tightness in your chest or a lump in your throat. Imagine looking at that sensation with the same eyes you would use to look at a small, frightened child. You wouldn't yell at a child for being scared. You would sit on the floor with them. You would offer them a hand. Try placing a hand on your chest, right over the heart, and simply acknowledging the sensation without trying to change it. You don't have to fix it in this second. You just have to stop being at war with it. When we soften the internal critic, we move from a mindset of fixing to a mindset of tending. We begin to realize that our sensitivity isn't a malfunction. It's actually a highly tuned instrument that's just been through too much. It is a biological record of your resilience. The critic says, "Why are you like this?" But the compassionate self says, "Of course you feel this way. Look at everything you've navigated." This shift in language is like a cool balm on a burn. It allows the nervous system to finally stop defending itself against you. Imagine the relief your body would feel if it knew that you were on its side. For years, your body has been navigating the world while also navigating your own internal judgment. That is a double burden. When you soften that voice, you are essentially telling your nervous system, the call is coming from inside the house, and the caller is a friend. This creates a profound internal safety. It is the beginning of what Jung described as integration, bringing the hidden, judged parts of ourselves into the light, where they can finally be understood and healed. Softening doesn't mean you're letting yourself off the hook or giving up. It means you're providing the necessary soil for change to actually grow. Growth doesn't happen in the cold, hard ground of self-hatred. It happens in the warmth of acceptance. As you practice this, you might notice that the critic starts to lose its edge. It becomes quieter, less frantic. You start to recognize that you are not your symptoms, and you are not your reactions. You are the deep, quiet awareness that can hold them all. By choosing to be gentle with yourself when you feel most broken, you are performing the most powerful act of rebellion against the cycle of trauma. You are proving that you are worthy of care, not because you are perfect, but because you are here. Sometimes stored energy feels like a pressure that needs to be pushed out. It's that feeling of being trapped in a situation, a conversation, or even in your own skin, where you want to shout no or stop, but the words stay lodged in your throat. This is often the freeze response, a moment where your body wanted to protect itself, but felt it couldn't. That impulse to push back didn't just disappear. It stayed coiled in your muscles, waiting for a chance to complete its mission. It feels like an invisible wall stands between you and the peace you're looking for, a barrier made of all the times you had to be polite when you were actually in pain. We can help the body finish that movement in a very literal, physical way. Find a wall in your room, something solid and unmoving, and place both palms flat against it. Step 1 foot back for stability and push as hard as you can for 10 seconds. Feel the engagement in your shoulders, the strength in your arms, and the power in your legs as they drive into the floor. As you push, imagine you are physically moving the stress, the expectations of others, and the old no's that you never got to say. Then, suddenly release and let your arms hang heavy by your sides. This effort and release cycle is a vital lesson for your nervous system. It helps your body understand the difference between being on and being off. For many of us, the line between working and resting has become blurred. We are always a little bit on, always a little bit braced. By intentionally engaging your full strength and then letting it go, you are showing your brain that it is possible to exert power and then return to a state of total ease. It is a physical metaphor for setting a boundary, showing yourself that you have the power to push back against the things that overwhelm you. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." When you push against that wall, you are choosing to be someone who can defend their own peace. You are taking that stagnant, stuck feeling and giving it a productive direction. You are proving to your body that you are no longer helpless. In those moments of intense effort, you are reclaiming the strength that trauma often makes us forget we have. You are signaling to your muscles that the freeze is over and that movement is safe again. Think of it as a way of clearing the pipes. When a pipe is clogged, you sometimes need a burst of pressure to get things flowing again. This exercise provides that burst. As you release the wall, you might feel a sudden rush of warmth or a heavy, grounded sensation in your feet. That is the feeling of your energy returning to its natural state. You might even feel a sense of emotional relief, a realization that you don't have to just take whatever life throws at you. You have a say. You have strength. This practice is especially helpful when you feel small or powerless. It reminds you that your body is a capable ally. It's a way of saying to yourself, "I can handle this. I can push back. I can create space for myself." You aren't just pushing against drywall. You are pushing against the invisible limitations that have been keeping you quiet. By the time you step away from the wall, you might find that the invisible wall in your mind has started to crumble too, leaving you with a sense of clarity and a reminder that you are the one in control of your own boundaries. As the tension begins to ebb, you might feel a sense of tiredness or even a sudden urge to yawn. These are excellent signs. It means your system is shifting from high alert to rest and repair. For a long time, you may have been a stranger to yourself, living in the upstairs of your mind, while your body stayed in the basement guarding the doors. Returning to the self is like coming back to a house you haven't visited in years. It might feel a bit dusty or quiet at first, but it is the only place where you can truly find rest. This is the space where self-discovery happens, when we aren't spending all our energy just trying to survive the day. We finally have the room to ask who we are beneath the stress. We begin to move from a state of reaction to a state of being. We often mistake our survival personality, the one that is always busy, always pleasing others, or always prepared for a crisis, for our actual identity. But that version of you is just a protector. Returning to the self is about meeting the person that protector was guarding. It's about finding the you that exists when there is nothing to fix and no one to save. In this quiet transition, you might feel a vulnerability that is both scary and beautiful. As the armor of tension thins out, you become more aware of your own heart. Carl Jung noted that your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. When the nervous system is loud, the heart is hard to hear. But as you settle back into your skin, you start to notice the subtle things, the way you actually feel about your life, the dreams you tucked away because they felt too heavy to carry, and the small, simple things that bring you a genuine sense of peace. Returning to the self is also about reclaiming your senses. It's noticing the way the light hits the wall, the taste of your water, and the sensation of your own breath moving without effort. It's a homecoming. You are no longer scattered across a dozen different worries or past regrets. You are gathered here, in the present, in this one body. This is the only place where healing actually takes root. You cannot heal a person who isn't home. By staying with yourself through the tiredness and the quiet, you are telling your soul that it is safe to come out of hiding. You might find that as you return to yourself, you feel a sense of grief for the time you spent away. That's okay. Let that grief be a bridge back to your own compassion. You were away because you had to be. You were busy surviving. But now, the survival is over for today. You are allowed to be unproductive. You are allowed to just sit in the silence of your own company. This is where you begin to rebuild the trust between your mind and your body, proving that you won't abandon yourself the next time things get difficult. Think of this section as the landing. You've done the work of discharging the energy, shaking off the static, and pushing against the walls. Now, you are simply landing back in your own life. It is a soft, steady arrival. You are no longer a collection of symptoms or a history of scores. You are a living, breathing human being with the capacity to feel, to change, and to rest. As you sit in this space of return, notice that the world hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. You are seeing it from the center of yourself, rather than from the edges of a crisis. This is the foundation of a new way of living, one where you are the anchor, and the stress is just the weather passing by. Discharging trauma isn't a one-time event. It's a conversation you have with yourself every day. It is the quiet commitment to stop treating your well-being like a luxury you'll afford yourself only when everything else is perfect. In reality, the world will likely never be perfectly quiet, and your to-do list may never be completely empty. Healing happens in the messy middle of it all. It's choosing to take those 10 minutes to check in before you reach a breaking point, rather than waiting until you are forced to stop by exhaustion or a sudden surge of overwhelm. This daily practice is about developing a new kind of awareness, a body honesty. It's the moment you're sitting at your desk and you realize your shoulders have crept up toward your ears again. And instead of ignoring it, you take that one deep, physiological sigh. It's the choice to shake out your hands after a difficult phone call, or to stand for a moment and feel the floor beneath your feet after a long drive. These small acts are like clearing a path through a forest. If you walk it every day, the path stays clear. If you wait months to do it, the brush grows back, and the way forward becomes harder to find. We often feel that to work on ourselves, we need to undergo some massive transformation. But true change is usually much quieter. As Carl Jung suggested, the small things are the ones that matter most. He once reflected that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Becoming who you are requires a daily shedding of who you are not. It's shedding the tension of other people's expectations, the weight of yesterday's mistakes, and the tightness of a future you can't yet control. Each day is a chance to peel back a layer of that survival armor and see what's underneath. There is a profound dignity in this repetition. When you make release a habit, you are building a reservoir of resilience that you can draw from when life gets loud. You are teaching your nervous system that it doesn't have to save up all its pain for a rainy day. It can let it out in small, manageable drops. This prevents the flood that so many of us fear. You are proving to yourself over and over that you are a person who is worth tending to. You are acknowledging that your peace is a priority, not a byproduct of being done with your work. Think of this practice as an act of kindness toward your future self. When you release the static of today, you aren't carrying it into tomorrow. You are giving yourself the gift of a fresh start every morning. You might still wake up with a heavy heart sometimes, or find that old patterns try to pull you back into the freeze, but you now have the tools to respond. You have the sigh, the shake, the push, and the rootedness of your own feet on the ground. You are no longer helpless in the face of your own history. As you move forward from this script and back into the rhythm of your life, remember that you don't have to carry it all. You were never meant to be a vault for everything that has ever hurt you. You are a vessel meant for flow, for movement, and for the simple joy of being alive. You are allowed to set the stones down, one by one, and walk forward with lighter steps. The practice of release is simply the act of coming home to yourself day after day until the home feels safe and the air feels clear, and you can finally, truly breathe. We often wait for a grand finale to our healing, a moment where the clouds part and we are suddenly, permanently fixed. But the truth is that healing is much quieter and far more intimate than a single breakthrough. It is the stillness you feel in your hands as you finish this practice. It is the way the room seems just a little bit brighter. Not because the lights changed, but because the pressure behind your eyes has finally lifted. This quiet after the storm is where your new life begins. It is the space where you are no longer defined by what you survived, but by the gentle, steady pulse of your own presence. You have spent so much of your journey looking for an exit from your pain. But what you have found instead is an entrance back into yourself. As Carl Jung beautifully reminded us, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. By taking these minutes to speak the language of your body, you have made a profound choice. You have chosen to stop being a museum of old hurts and started being a living, breathing person who is allowed to change. You have proven that while the past may have written the first few chapters of your story, you are the one holding the pen for the rest of it. There is a unique kind of bravery in what you've just done. It takes courage to stop running, to put down the distractions, and to actually feel the weight of your own existence. It takes courage to admit that you are tired, and even more courage to believe that you deserve to rest. Most people spend their entire lives trying to outrun their nervous systems, but you have turned around to face yours, with a hand held out in peace. That shift from fear to curiosity is the most significant step you will ever take. As you step back into the world, carry this sense of body home with you. You might find that the world feels a little louder or faster for a while, and that's okay. You now have a sanctuary that lives inside your own skin. You have the knowledge that no matter how much the world tries to tighten you, you have the inherent power to soften. You are not a victim of your biology. You are the guardian of it. You are the one who can breathe deep when the air gets thin, who can shake off the dust when the road gets rough, and who can stand firm when the ground feels shaky. Think of this as the end of a long exile. You have been away from the you that knows how to play, how to rest, and how to feel safe. But the door has always been unlocked. Every time you return to these practices, you are walking through that door. You are reclaiming the territory that was taken from you by stress and time. Go slowly. Be patient with the parts of you that are still hesitant to let go. They have been protecting you for a long time, and they might need a little more proof that the war is truly over. Give them that proof through your gentleness. Give them that proof through your breath. You are embarking on a journey that doesn't have a destination, only a deeper and deeper sense of belonging to the earth, to the moment, and most importantly, to yourself.